It is interesting too, in the context of the life you live, that incident, that terrible, tragic incident was used by our government to basically introduce and try to promote hate speech laws and restrict freedom of speech in this country. We had a bunch of people that said that single person, the nutter with the gun, and his rambling manifesto was all because we allowed people free rein on the internet and we had too much free speech, and that we were an inherently a racist country. Our security forces were inherently racist. Our police were inherently racist. And a political capital was made of that tragedy, largely led by the government of a woman called Jacinda Ardern. Have you heard of her?
Yes, absolutely. And it was positively monstrous to see that. But what they're actually after is a surveillance state. And that is why free speech, irrespective of the people that you follow, if you hate these people, if you love these people need to understand how crucial the ability to have speech is, because what you're giving them ultimately is the power to subjugate and enslave you. You are saying that we agree that you should be the only purveyors of information. We need fact checkers. I mean, COVID was a very scary time. In America, we're like rah, free speech all the time. And we got so very close. They declared an emergency. And they were saying that even if you told a story about yourself, even if you got online and said, hey, I got the COVID vax and my arm is swollen, look, they could take that down because it was better for the greater good not to know that. I mean, we're really talking 1984 Orwellian nightmare, a dystopian nightmare when you think that there's going to be a ministry of truth. And it's scary to think that there are people that don't recognize what exactly it is that we are trying to stand up against. You should never trust your government to be, bigger than the individuals, a surveillance state telling you what to think, what's true and what is false.
All right. Jacinda Ardern just recently, I think 2 days ago, spoke, and it was all over the mainstream media here. She spoke at the DNC, at the Democratic National Convention. We understand, though our media didn't, so it was in a side room. Do you think there are parallels between Jacinda Ardern and Kamala Harris?
There absolutely are. And there are more world leaders as well. Emmanuel Macron, Justin Trudeau. We are all fighting the same thing. That is the reason I am doing this tour, is because it's the same story happening amongst all of us who are just going, hey, I just want to be able to say what I think. I want to work hard. I want to be able to afford to feed my family and not have the state interwoven into every element of my life. And yet we are dealing with a group that wants a globalist government, like one united government at the top of elites that are going to rule over what we eat, what we think, how we think, if we can think, where we go. And I view us as really the last guard against these freedoms. Like if we don't stop this very obvious evil agenda that is so clearly being spelled out right now to the public, then our children are going to be the ones that have to suffer. And that's what motivates me to fight every single day against it.
All right. And see, this is interesting. I think we completely 100% agree on the corruption of mainstream news media, on the importance of freedom of speech, of the evil things governments do in the name of diversity and everything. But you begin, and I'll just be honest, you begin to lose me slightly with the conspiracy theory. And, we're allowed to disagree. That's the great thing about what we've got left of democracy and freedom in the Western world. Do you think that your discussion of things like, and I know a lot of this is misinterpreted by the trolls, on the internet and on X, do you ever consider that you go places that might damage your credibility on the really important big issues? And do you ever worry about that?
That's a very good question. I would say that in the retrospect, the reason why my audience has grown so big and I have the #3 podcast in America is because people realized that every time that they were told that Candace was peddling a conspiracy theory, they needed to wait just 1 month before it was true. And that's why I said, about BLM being a scam organization, that no one could accept that after George Floyd. And now there's documentaries and the people, So for me, it's not about, especially what I'm really doing is journeying to the past. I'm giving people historical documents, telling them what books they should read to understand what's happening in terms of thinking that there's obviously some sort of a global connection. I mean, why is Jacinda there? why is she there actually at the DNC if there's not some sort of a connection there? Some of this stuff, and what I say to my audience all the time, is they've gotten very good at forcing us to abandon our common sense, right? Your common sense is what comes online. You go, okay, like that sounds weird. Like
walks
6
like
feet
a duck,
social
talks
distancing.
like a duck, probably is a duck, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's where I come from. I'm like, listen, I can just tell you, like, common sense says to me, like, 6 feet social distancing. The science of that just sounds a little shady. You know, common sense says to me, it's probably not a good idea for your relatives to die alone in a hospital. And so that is what offends them, is that they work so hard to get people. And again, going back to that 1984 novel, what is the most final crucial instruction is to get people not to believe their own eyes. And I'm here saying, actually, why don't you try believing your own eyes?